The box they gave me wasn't even sturdy cardboard, just a flimsy paper container that bent under the weight of 18 years of memories. Family photos. The coffee mug my daughter made in 3rd grade. A small plant I'd nurtured since my first day at Westlake Manufacturing. We're restructuring the department. Today will be your last day. Janet delivered the blow with practiced corporate detachment, her eyes focusing somewhere over my left shoulder, refusing to meet my gaze. The same Janet who had attended my children's graduation parties. Who had once cried on my shoulder during her divorce. Who now sat behind the imposing mahogany desk as Westlake's chief operations officer, pushing termination papers toward me. My name is Martin Cooper. I'm 52 years old, and until that Friday afternoon, I had devoted nearly 2 decades to building Westlake Manufacturing's operations division from a chaotic mess into a model of efficiency. Under my leadership, we'd reduced production costs by 32%, increased output by 46%, and developed a supply chain management system that had become the envy of our competitors. None of that mattered now. We need fresh perspectives, Janet continued, still not meeting my eyes. Someone who understands modern manufacturing techniques. I knew exactly what kind of fresh perspective she meant. Tyler Williams. Janet's nephew. 26 years old with an MBA from a prestigious university but zero actual manufacturing experience. I'd seen him wandering the facility for the past month, asking basic questions about processes I had implemented years ago, his designer shoes completely unsuited to a factory floor. I see, I said, signing the severance papers without arguing. I had too much dignity to plead. Too much self-respect to point out that Janet's restructuring conveniently created a high-paying position for her sister's son. When would you like me to clear out my office? Human Resources will supervise that process immediately after our meeting. Janet finally looked at me, perhaps surprised by my calm response. Martin, I want you to know this isn't personal. I almost laughed. Replacing a dedicated employee with your inexperienced nephew is the definition of personal. But I simply nodded and stood. 18 years, I said quietly. I hope whatever comes next works out well for Westlake. As I walked past the glass-walled conference room, I saw Tyler waiting, scrolling through his phone with casual impatience. He wore an expensive suit that still had the fresh, unworn look of someone who'd spent more time in classrooms than boardrooms. He didn't notice me. Why would he? I was already being erased. In the parking lot, I set the flimsy box on my passenger seat and sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. The manufacturing floor was visible through the large windows, workers moving with purpose and precision, systems I had designed, people I had trained, efficiencies I had implemented over 18 years of dedication. I didn't slam my fist against the dashboard. Didn't screech out of the parking lot. Just turned the key, put the car in drive, and left Westlake Manufacturing behind with the same quiet professionalism that had defined my career. What Janet and Tyler didn't know, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that operations wasn't just my job. It was my calling. And I was far from finished. They did what? Susan nearly choked on her coffee when I told her I'd been terminated. My wife of 26 years had always been my fiercest defender, her righteous indignation now burning bright enough to light our kitchen. After everything you've done for that company? Business decision, I replied with forced neutrality, unpacking the pathetic box onto our counter. They wanted someone younger. You mean they wanted Janet's nephew? Susan wasn't fooled. The Westlake office grapevine was efficient, and as an administrative coordinator in accounting, she heard everything. Tyler can barely operate the coffee machine in the break room, Martin. How exactly is he going to run operations? I shrugged, carefully placing my daughter's handmade mug in the cupboard. Not my problem anymore. What are we going to do? Susan's anger shifted to worry. The mortgage, Megan's college tuition. We'll be fine, I assured her, though my own stomach was churning with the same concerns. My severance package would cover 3 months. After that, our savings would be stretched thin. I'll start applying for positions on Monday. I spent the weekend updating my resume, a strange experience after 18 years at the same company. When Megan called from college, I made no mention of the termination. No need to worry her during final exams. Monday morning felt surreal. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, I had nowhere to be. No production reports to review, no supply chain issues to resolve, no team meetings to lead. The silence of our empty house was deafening. I was scrolling through manufacturing job listings when my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Martin Cooper. This is Robert Chen from Atlas Industrial. Janet Williams suggested I contact you. That was unexpected. Janet, offering me as a reference. Guilt, perhaps. I understand you recently left Westlake, Robert continued. We're looking for an operations consultant for a 3-month project. Interested in discussing over lunch? Absolutely, I replied, surprised at how quickly an opportunity had appeared. When were you thinking? How's tomorrow at noon? The Capitol Grill downtown. The next day, I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early, dressed in my best suit. Robert was already there, a compact man in his 60s with intelligent eyes and a firm handshake. Janet speaks highly of your operational expertise, he said after we ordered. Says you're the best in the business. I maintained my professional demeanor despite my confusion. That's generous of her. I'll be direct, Martin. We've acquired 3 manufacturing facilities in the past year, each with different operational systems. The integration has been challenging. Robert leaned forward. We need someone who can create standardized processes across all facilities without disrupting production. 3 months, potentially renewable. Interested? As Robert outlined the project in detail, my mind immediately began identifying solutions, spotting inefficiencies, developing implementation strategies. This was exactly the kind of complex operational challenge I thrived on. When he mentioned the compensation, a consulting rate 3 times my former salary, I almost choked on my water. Why me? I finally asked. There must be dozens of consultants with bigger firms, fancier degrees. Robert smiled. Because Janet said you're the one person who could actually deliver results, not just presentations. Said you built Westlake's operations from scratch with practical solutions, not theoretical models. He paused. She seemed very conflicted about your departure, if I'm being honest. That was illuminating. Perhaps Janet had been forced to choose between me and family obligations. It didn't excuse her actions, but it added context. When can you start? Robert asked. How about Monday? 3 weeks into the Atlas project, I received an unexpected text from Diego Ramirez, Westlake's production supervisor and my former right-hand man. Things falling apart here. Tyler implementing lean manufacturing with no understanding of our custom processes. Production down 15%. Quality issues mounting. Miss your steady hand, boss. I appreciated the update but sent a diplomatic response, transitions always challenging. Give it time. How's the family? Diego didn't take the hint, family's good. Unlike our production lines. 3 major equipment failures this week because maintenance schedules were unnecessarily conservative, according to our new operations genius. I put my phone away. Atlas was keeping me more than busy, and Westlake's problems weren't mine anymore. I had moved on. But the texts from Diego continued over the following weeks, each more concerning than the last. Emergency supplier change approved without quality testing. 3 batches rejected by Henderson Corp. Safety protocols streamlined. 2 near misses on line 4 yesterday. Janet looking worried. Board asking questions about production delays. I didn't respond to these updates, but I couldn't help absorbing the information. The operations system I'd built so carefully was being dismantled by someone who didn't understand its interconnected nature. 6 weeks after my termination, Susan came home with her own update from Westlake. "It's chaos," she reported, dropping her purse on the counter with unusual force. "Accounting can't reconcile inventory discrepancies. Customer complaints flooding in. And Tyler." She shook her head. "He's blaming outdated systems for problems clearly caused by his changes." "Not our concern," I reminded her, though I felt a pang for the workers whose jobs were becoming more difficult and potentially less secure. "Janet asked about you today," Susan added, watching my reaction carefully. "Wanted to know how you were doing. I told her you were thriving as a consultant." She looked relieved, oddly enough. The Atlas project was indeed going exceptionally well. What had been scheduled as a 3-month engagement was expanding in scope. Robert had already mentioned the possibility of a permanent executive position. 2 more weeks passed. The texts from Diego grew more urgent. Henderson Corp threatening to cancel contract over quality issues. $3.2 million annually. Board called emergency meeting. Tyler implemented new inventory system without proper testing. Complete failure. Can't locate critical components. Production stopped on 3 lines. Janet took medical leave. Stress. Tyler telling everyone you left operations in disarray. Nobody buying it. That last message made my blood boil. I had handed over immaculately organized systems with detailed documentation. To blame the growing chaos on my departure was as dishonest as it was predictable. I was drafting a new proposal for Atlas when my phone rang. Janet's name appeared on the screen. My finger hovered over the decline button. After all, she had fired me without hesitation to hire her nephew. Did I owe her the courtesy of a conversation? Professional curiosity won out. "Hello, Janet." "Martin." Her voice sounded strained, exhausted. "Thank you for taking my call. I hope you're well." "I am, thank you." I kept my tone neutral. "What can I do for you?" A deep breath on the other end of the line. "I've made a terrible mistake." The words hung in the air between us. I waited, saying nothing. "Westlake is in crisis," she continued. "The operational changes implemented since your departure have been catastrophic. We've lost Henderson Corp as a client. Production efficiency is down 43%. Quality control failures have resulted in 3 major shipment rejections." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. Westlake employed over 300 people, good people with families, mortgages, children in college. "Martin, I'll be direct. We need you back." Janet's voice cracked slightly. "The board has authorized me to offer you the position of Vice President of Operations. Full autonomy. Substantial increase in compensation." I leaned back in my chair, processing this unexpected turn. "And Tyler?" A heavy sigh. "Tyler has submitted his resignation, effective immediately." It was, strongly encouraged. "I see." I imagined the board meeting that must have precipitated this call. The hard questions about why an experienced operations director had been replaced by an inexperienced relative. The mounting financial losses. The customer defections. "What are you offering, exactly?" I asked. Janet outlined a package that included a salary 30% higher than my previous compensation, enhanced retirement benefits, and a seat on the executive committee, influence I had never been offered before. "I need to consider this carefully," I said. "I'm currently under contract with Atlas Industrial." "Of course," Janet replied quickly. "But please, don't take too long. Every day that passes." "I'll call you tomorrow," I promised. After hanging up, I sat motionless, staring out my home office window at the garden Susan had carefully tended for years. Like operations, gardening required patience, systems thinking, and respect for natural processes that couldn't be rushed or fundamentally altered without consequences. When Susan came home, I explained Janet's offer. "You're not seriously considering it," she asked incredulously. After how they treated you. 300 employees, I reminded her. People we know. Friends whose livelihoods are at risk because of poor management decisions. So you'd rescue Janet after she discarded you for her nephew? Susan crossed her arms. What does Robert say about all this? I haven't spoken with him yet. The call with Robert the next morning was straightforward. I explained the situation honestly, including my conflicted feelings about returning to a company that had terminated me so abruptly. Sounds like they've learned an expensive lesson about valuing experience over family connections, Robert observed. What do you want to do? I'm not sure, I admitted. The Atlas project has been deeply satisfying. But there are people at Westlake who may lose their jobs if the company continues to decline. Robert nodded thoughtfully. Our project has another 6 weeks contractually. But if you feel compelled to help Westlake, we could arrange a transition. He smiled slightly. On one condition. What's that? You continue consulting for Atlas afterward, maybe 1 day a week. Your insights have been too valuable to lose completely. The compromise was perfect, allowing me to address Westlake's crisis while maintaining my relationship with Atlas. By evening, I had worked out the details and called Janet. I'll return to Westlake under 3 conditions, I began without preamble. First, I need complete operational autonomy. No interference from family considerations or non-operational factors. Absolutely, Janet agreed immediately. Second, I want Diego Ramirez promoted to Assistant Director of Operations with appropriate compensation adjustment. A slight hesitation. The budget is tight right now, but yes, that can be arranged. Finally, I'll be working 4 days a week at Westlake. The 5th day, I'll be consulting with Atlas Industrial. Non-negotiable. This time the pause was longer. The board expected a full-time commitment given the crisis. The crisis didn't develop overnight, and it won't be resolved overnight, I replied evenly. This arrangement is sustainable for the long term. Take it or leave it. All right, Janet conceded. When can you start? Monday. I'll need complete access to all operational data and production statistics from the past 2 months. You'll have everything you need. And Martin. Another pause. Thank you. Walking into Westlake Manufacturing the following Monday produced a strange mix of emotions. The security guard's surprised smile. The manufacturing floor workers who stopped to welcome me back with handshakes and relieved grins. Diego's bear hug and whispered, "Thank God you're here." The operations office, my former domain now returning to my supervision, was in disarray. Stacks of unaddressed reports. Production schedules with impossible timelines. Inventory discrepancies flagged but unresolved. Janet appeared in the doorway as I was surveying the chaos. She looked tired, the confidence that had characterized her leadership noticeably diminished. The situation is worse than I described, she admitted. We've lost 28% of our order volume. 2 key suppliers have placed us on credit hold. And the Henderson Corp contract. I know about Henderson, I said, arranging papers into organized piles. I've already called their purchasing director. We're meeting Wednesday to discuss terms for reinstatement. Janet blinked in surprise. How did you manage that? They refused to return my calls for weeks. 15 years of earned trust and delivered promises, I replied simply. Now, I need you to convene the production team in the conference room. We have systems to rebuild. The next 4 weeks were among the most demanding of my career. 18-hour days. Reconstructing processes that had been carelessly dismantled. Rebuilding supplier relationships damaged by missed payments and poor communication. Recovering quality control systems that had been streamlined into ineffectiveness. Diego proved invaluable, stepping into his expanded role with confidence and skill. Together, we meticulously restored operational integrity while identifying genuine improvements that could be implemented without disrupting core functions. Henderson Corp cautiously returned with a probationary order, smaller than their usual volume, but a start. We delivered it perfectly, ahead of schedule, with quality that exceeded their specifications. 6 weeks after my return, Janet stopped by my office late one evening. I was reviewing production statistics that showed our first week of positive trends, efficiency up 12%, quality rejections down 17%, on-time delivery improving. The board meeting went well, she said, leaning against the doorframe. They're impressed with the turnaround progress. I nodded without looking up from the reports. Our professional relationship had been rebuilt on strictly business terms, respectful but distant. Martin, I owe you an apology, she continued. A real one, not the corporate version. This made me glance up. Janet rarely admitted mistakes, even small ones. Replacing you with Tyler was wrong on every level, professionally, ethically, personally. She entered the office and sat down across from me. Family pressure clouded my judgment. My sister was insistent, the board chairman thought bringing in young blood might spark innovation, and I convinced myself it was a legitimate business decision when it wasn't. Why tell me this now? I asked. Because you came back to save the company despite how poorly you were treated. Because you've worked tirelessly to fix problems you didn't create. Because integrity should be acknowledged. She met my eyes directly for the first time since that termination meeting. I made a terrible mistake, and I'm deeply sorry. The apology was unexpected but appreciated. Thank you for saying that. The board has authorized a performance bonus based on the improvements already implemented, she added. And they've approved Diego's promotion permanently. Good. He's earned it. I turned back to my reports, a subtle indication that the personal portion of our conversation was complete. Janet stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Tyler is applying for operations positions at other manufacturers in the region. Several have called for references. What are you telling them? The truth. That he's academically qualified but lacks practical experience and understanding of manufacturing operations. She smiled slightly. And I'm suggesting they consider consultants with proven track records instead. I raised an eyebrow. Recommending Atlas Industrial, perhaps? As a matter of fact, yes. Janet's smile widened. Robert sends his regards, by the way. Said your advice on their Milwaukee facility implementation was transformative. After she left, I leaned back in my chair, contemplating the strange circular journey of the past few months. From terminated employee to sought-after consultant to executive with expanded influence and dual roles that utilized my expertise more effectively than ever before. 6 months after my return, Westlake Manufacturing had not only recovered but was thriving. Operational efficiency exceeded pre-crisis levels. Henderson Corp had restored their full contract volume and added new product lines. Our reputation for quality and reliability was rebuilding steadily. The 4-day arrangement with 1 day at Atlas proved surprisingly beneficial for both companies. Cross-pollination of ideas and exposure to different manufacturing challenges kept my thinking fresh and innovative. On a Friday afternoon at Atlas, Robert and I were reviewing the quarterly results of our implementation when he asked, "Ever regret going back to Westlake?" I considered the question seriously. Sometimes I regret how easy it was to forgive the way I was treated, I admitted. But I don't regret helping the company recover. Too many good people would have suffered otherwise. Robert nodded thoughtfully. You know what's remarkable about this whole situation? You never approached it as revenge or vindication, even though you had every right to. Revenge wouldn't have fixed the operational issues, I replied practically. And the true vindication wasn't in Janet's apology or the board's acknowledgement. It was in rebuilding something better than before. That evening, driving home, I reflected on how differently things might have gone. I could have refused Janet's plea for help, letting Westlake continue its operational decline until more jobs were lost and the company itself became vulnerable to hostile takeover. I could have demanded Tyler's public humiliation as a condition of my return. I could have used my renewed influence to make Janet's position untenable. But none of those approaches would have created value. None would have improved systems or protected livelihoods or demonstrated the true worth of operational excellence. Sometimes the most powerful response to being undervalued isn't anger or retribution, but simply proving your worth through results that speak for themselves. When I arrived home, Susan was waiting with news of her own, a promotion to senior financial analyst, a position she had pursued for years. Apparently, my analytical rigor and attention to detail have been noticed, she said, eyes bright with well-deserved pride. They're lucky to have you, I told her sincerely. As we celebrated her achievement that evening, I realized that both of us had found our professional footing not by demanding recognition, but by consistently delivering excellence until it could no longer be ignored. The ultimate lesson wasn't about Westlake or Janet or Tyler's failed tenure in operations. It was about the quiet power of expertise patiently applied, a force more enduring than corporate politics, more valuable than family connections, and ultimately impossible to replace with untested theories or impressive degrees. Some knowledge can only be earned through years of committed practice. Some skills can't be found in textbooks or crash courses. Some value becomes apparent only in its absence. These truths can't be circumvented, only temporarily ignored, until reality inevitably reasserts itself. If you found value in this story, I'd appreciate your support by subscribing to my channel and hitting that notification bell. Each week, I share real-life experiences that demonstrate important lessons about business, careers, and personal integrity. Have you ever been undervalued at work only to have your worth recognized later? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else navigating a similar situation right now. And if you know someone facing professional challenges or workplace injustice, please share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for watching, and remember, your true value isn't determined by those who fail to see it, but by the results only you can deliver. See you in the next video.